Hey, howdy, hey, what's happening? Hi, hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. What are you guys doing? What are you guys talking about? What's happening? You guys see my video on the fart pedal? Come on now. What are you guys talking about? Let's see. Oh, there's a super chat. I'm going to grab that right out of the gate, just because that's what we do. Just being polite. The pic you shared of your charcoal metallic HSS signature on the gear page this week was uber impressive. Thanks. You already hit it out of the park aesthetically. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. There's even a better pic, yeah, actually, that the nice folks at Sir put up yesterday. I will show you, because it just shows it's got a little more contrast, or is it less contrast? With the background, you can just kind of see the ooh, look at that thing. And it's, of course, you're not going to see the details, but if you want to check it out, look at the Sir page, and you'll see it. It's just a really nice color. I wanted a black version of the guitar, but more than black. I didn't want just black. I wanted something else. So the charcoal metallic seemed to be the way to go, and I just love it, man. I do. It's just cool looking. Like, so this one, I do believe, is on its way to the UK to my buddy James Cole from Classic Rock Show, but they're finishing a bunch right now. They got in the works, and they're finally getting out there. So I know it's been a long time coming. The guitar was announced last June, but quality problems. They got a lot of guitars to build, so it just took them a while to be able to get to the point where they could get to these, and they're getting out there now. So that's what's going on. And let's see what else we got here. What are you guys talking about? Greetings from Northwest Indiana from Jay Jones. What's happening? Thorn Bucker Sunday, says Ben. I'm going to move down through the chat here. Missed last week, says Dylan. Welcome home. Regarding Sir saying Class D amps lose high and low end, I use Seymour Duncan Power Stage for a Kingsley preamp. What is your experience using your Power Stage and good sound? Well, they just have a certain, there's like a hardness to the mids with the Class D stuff, unless they sort of incorporate some sort of compensation. They don't do the kind of damping, and you don't get the kind of curve that you do with a tube amp, is generally what I've found. So you get a sort of a flatter sound where there's more mids. It's almost like reverse of what a tube amp does. So when a tube amp's got a big resonant peak and a, you know, warmth in the low end and then a clarity on the top end, the other stuff can sound a little mid-rangey, and that's just sort of like a solid state amp thing I've found. That's not a very technical description, but I think that's what, tonally at least, what Sir's referring to. It's a good product. I mean, if you're using something that has that built in anyway, like let's say a modeler that's already modeled kind of the impedance curve and stuff, you know, and then you're just kind of reamping it. Like if I use, for instance, my, sort of reactive load to take a capture of my JMP Marshall or something, right? And then I'm playing that through a power stage. It seems to have a good sound, like where I'm getting the capture baked in the impedance curve or whatever, and some of that resonance and stuff that happens with a you know, when a tube amp is plugging into a speaker, right? So because that's what a reactive load does. So when you kind of bake that into something, or when it's built in, you know, via modeling, a modeler, it seems to work pretty well. But when you're doing something like just using a tube preamp into a Class D amp, you're not really going to get the power section. You haven't modeled or captured or whatever, put that power section sort of, and the way that it reacts with a speaker or a cabinet or a reactive load into the equation. So you would probably notice a fair difference if you were to use a tube power amp, for instance, you know, to amplify it. So that's that. You can kind of hear it in something like the amped one from Black Star, where they've got, you know, basically, if you there's a good video where a guy uses that amped one pedal, and then he shows off the different you know, power stage sounds, because it's got some modeled like EL34, 6L6, whatever, and then just flat kind of Class D power amp. And you can hear in that video the difference between the different, you know, clearly that they've kind of gone and modeled the stuff and put it in their power amps. So anyways, you know, the good stuff that the tube amps do and stuff like that when you plug them in that we all like, you know. We got some Edmonton folks in here. That's kind of fun. Jerome, Ben. I don't know if Ben's from Edmonton, but Ben says, "Go Oilers." That's cool. Cooper says, "I heard that Marshall's been sold." Yeah, I guess the division that deals with Marshall's kind of consumer electronic, like their headphones and the Bluetooth speakers they do and stuff like that. I guess they purchased Marshall. I don't know the specifics of that business deal or that there even was a separate company. I didn't know that, but I guess they're the owners now. And you know, could be a good thing, could be a not good thing, could be, who knows? Time will tell, I guess. I mean, it's sort of like Gibson buying Mesa, right? You know, it's like, it doesn't seem to have hurt their company, does it? I mean, I don't think so. You know, if anything, they're continuing to develop things, so I don't know. Smoothie. Dates, peanut butter, protein. What do we got here? 192 people online. Nice to have you all here. Has anybody made a drinking game for every time you say quad cortex? All right. Let's see. Hi, all from New York City, says Tom. Saw your IG story with Jamie Kime. How about getting him on one Sunday? He's an amazing guitar player, man, Jamie. Jamie works with Dave Friedman a lot. Excuse me, doing racks and pedal boards. Little history, little trivia. Jamie actually made my first rack at pre-Friedman when he was working at Making Music on Lancashire in North Hollywood in about 1996 or so. I had a 1996 or yeah, sometime around there. I had a rack made, SKB rack with a pedal drawer and a GCX and a Rocktron Replifex, my first early little switching rig, and Jamie put that together for me. Yeah. And now him and I mean he's been around a long time, but he's an amazing guitar player. He toured with the Zappa Plays Zappa and a bunch of other people, and he's just terrific. Like really amazing guitar player. Like I got to take some lessons from him one of these days. Mike's Guitar and Gear Channel says, have you ever compared the tone using SL68 Master using just the Fryette? Yeah, I'm pretty well aware of what the Master does, the post-phase inverter Master. Without saying much about that, I've experimented with different kinds of Masters, actually, and it's kind of interesting. In the 68, we've tried a couple different things. The stock, the way it comes, is great. It will tend to lessen the effect of the presence control when you turn it down, just because of the effect of the post-phase inverter Master and where it is in the circuit. You'll tend to notice maybe at really low volumes will scoop out the mids and be a little less full through the mids, be a little more toppy and bottomy, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, the post-phase inverter Master, especially for just shaving off enough volume to play gigs like in a club or something where you can't have a 100-watt amp raging, but you can play at drummer volume, you know, with the amp. It works great for that. Like bringing it down to 7, it's really nice. So the power station, the you know, reactive load and reamp will be a little more transparent, and still, you know, you'll retain a bit more. Only when you're running, I find, I mean, a Plexi, the way that they kind of the way that they work is like, I find the power section that comes into play is probably mostly the phase inverter, like starting to drive and then eventually getting distorted, right? At when you're turning it up to like 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what you're hearing, I think, mainly. And then the effect of the rest of the amp and voltage sagging and like all the stuff that happens if you maybe turn it on 10, that only happens like when it's really quite high, I find, like the volume. So that's why I think, I mean, this is only from speaking from experience and not really from anything scientific, but most of the sound seems to be in that phase inverter really doing its thing. And that, like, I don't really believe you're distorting the crap out of the power tubes and stuff on a plexi. You're getting some, but it's not, it's the final, from 7 to 10 where, yeah, okay, you're getting a little bit of like out of the whole power amp on the, and it's just kind of giving up and sagging, and the voltage and the, everything's stretched to the limit at that point. And when you turn down the post phase inverter master, let's say a little bit, you lose that. It's not even necessarily a bad thing, because what you're doing is driving the, sorry, I'll get those super chats in just a sec, they're disappearing there, but what you're doing is driving that phase inverter really hard, even with the post phase inverter master, and that's got a sound. And then when you drive the rest of the power section really hard, it starts to collapse and it gets a little sloppy. But it's cool, but it's like, it can get a little messy. And so when you turn down the post phase inverter master, it tends to be not as messy. But you might want the messy. It just depends, So if you want the messy, then you use the attenuator or load reamp, rather more accurately called. Yeah. It's a little cold in here. I'm gonna turn on my little heater. It's nice outside, but it's just building's a little cold. What else we got here? Devin says you got a fuzz pedal, Azor fuzz pedal for $25. Wow, that's some 1970s prices. Any chance of these new colors being available on your HH? Oh, we did that's a good question. That's an interesting point. I mean, it would be nice to have the charcoal frost available in the double humbucker, or the silver. Maybe we should. I'll talk to the guys about that. Starting to make it available at some point. All the color choices, that would actually be really cool. The thing is, the two guitars don't really, like, here was the thing. I wanted to do a black on the new guitar, but the black and red is really special on the double humbucker because it's got the red back, right? Well, this guitar the new one doesn't have binding, so we couldn't do, that was a big part of why I chose the charcoal frost instead of black, because it's like, otherwise it'd just be a black guitar with black pickguard. It'd look cool in black, but I wanted to do something a little more special, so we chose the sparkle top, and so what would you do on the back of the, this is the fun part of coming up with this stuff, but what would the back be on the double humbucker if we went with the charcoal metallic on the top? Would you do the back just black? That'd probably be pretty cool. Charcoal metallic top with black back and sides. Kind of neat. Or do you keep the red? Maybe not. Maybe that's like too much. I don't know. Do you do a dark cherry back and neck? That'd be cool. Like, dark cherry metallic. Do two metallics, like charcoal metallic top, dark cherry metallic back. And it's kind of fun, right? When you think about it. I guess you could design a guitar like this or something similar in the configurator and take a look at what it would look like, right? Have you guys seen the Sur configurator on their website? It's pretty fun. Yeah. Chris says, did you or anyone in the chat see Tom Bukovac's pedal shootout? I didn't, actually. I'd like to watch that, though. That's just the kind of thing we like to watch around here. What exactly is the BST switch on your SL68? So that is I'm trying to remember. There's two switches there's three switches John put on my SL68 that were just some custom stuff, and he hates me talking about it probably because then he gets requests from people saying, will you do that? But he doesn't have time, and he was just nice and did it on mine. So I feel very special. But anyways, yeah, he maybe at some point they incorporate this stuff into an amp. I don't know. But basically there's two switches on my amp. With the Van Halen kind of circuit, as is widely sort of, disseminated on the internet and all that, there was a couple things that are unique to his particular amp, or the special amp, were a cap that at some point was added in the preamp that is just kind of what has kind of commonly been referred to as the fat cap. and it's just a fatter thing on the second tube stage or something that just gives a little more. Just it doesn't really add gain. It adds a little bit of a thickness to the sound. It's quite subtle, really, but it's cool. And so there's one switch on my amp that switches that in and out from the stock Marshall value to the fatter thing. And then on the other, the one, this is what I think is labeled BST. I'm trying to remember which was which, but yeah, I think it's fat and BST, something like that. All it is the mid value, the mid pot value, 25K or 50K. A competent tech could add this to, you know, just about any amp that's of the Plex C, you know, variety. But yeah, for whatever reason, his amp had this 50K mid pot in it, which is kind of an unusual value. Marshall, as guys like Dave Friedman will tell you, you know, sometimes unusual values popped up in the amps. You know, parts would normally be, the normal schematic or spec would be a certain thing, and then all of a sudden you see a weird value. You know, this was one of those, the 50K mid. And the effect of a 50K mid, as opposed to 25K, is a little bit more open. It just lifts the EQ a little bit, and you get a little more signal through the preamp, just a little. And this stuff is subtle. I showed it, by the way, in my EVH deep dive video. Both of these things, I believe I show, or at least the 50K mid I show. Did I have it done on the amp by then, and then I showed it? I don't remember. I remember how I showed it, but I showed it anyways in that video, maybe via those switches. But yeah. Do I prefer HSS or SSS strats? From Devin, I like both. You know, it just depends what. Sometimes a true bridge single coil is really nice, and some music just lends itself to that. I mean, if you watch me like Classic Rock Show tour that I just did, I was playing both. I had my blue 3 single coil Classic S out, and I also used my signature guitar that has a humbucker in the bridge. So there's some things that you just need a humbucker for, and there's other things where a bridge single coil is really great, you know. So let's hear you play a telly. Well, not right now. I'm just answering questions and drinking my coffee. So I love tellies, though. I've got one here, a couple. Tubes cost a lot now. They do. That's true. That's happening. Did you guys see the article from about the Western Electric? It was in Wired. It's a cool publication. Western Electric, that tube company that is in South Carolina, I do believe, and they're getting closer and closer to making a 12AX7. Their goal is to sell in the summer. There's a company that makes the 300B, the only tube still currently produced in the U.S. They sell pairs of them for $1,500 each to hi-fi guys. But it sounds promising. I mean, it's like, who knows what they're going to cost, but they have to be aware that, I mean, they're supposedly doing some things to make them extremely reliable and, you know, the longevity factor. But they have to be aware they can't sell them for some crazy amount or nobody will buy them but hi-fi guys, right? But anyway, I'm going to get some no matter what. I want to support that, and very interested in what's happening with that. So Greg says, any favorite single coil sized humbucker? You know, I never really got into that. Like the whole like little 59 or you know, a double rail, kind of hot rails or whatever. I've had a couple over the years, but no, I can't say that I sort of a bit of a traditionalist that way, I guess. You know, if I want a humbucker, I've got a humbucker in the guitar, standard humbucker spacing and all that. Because I believe the spacing of the, you know, the width of how wide apart those two coils are and stuff has a big part to do with the sound, the area, the string that it's sensing. So when I want a humbucker sound, I just go for the humbucker. Hot single coil, single coil sized humbucker. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe, yeah, I don't really have a favorite, to be honest, because I don't have anything like that. Out of all, you know, the guitars that I have, I don't have anything like that. So what's popular? I guess probably the most popular, the little JB, the little 59, the Barden, you know, with its dual rail kind of single coil sized humbucker. I mean, do we consider an HS3, you know, the DiMarzio? Those were always cool, to be honest. I like, I mean, the original Yngwie pickup kind of, right? Always struck me as sounding pretty cool. But I think you mean more of a, the dual rail sort of design. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for you than that. But it's just, it's just not something that I ever really got into. Have you ever compared the tone using SL68 Master only just versus using... Oh, wait. I already answered that, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah. The answer, anyway, Mike, is that I think you get a little more fatness and girth and, and a little bit more of the true thing when you use the attenuator. And when you use the post-phase inverter, it's going to be a little cleaner sounding, a little tighter. For many people, that's not a bad thing. And especially at gig volume, maybe not at if we're talking about a bedroom volume, there's going to be more of a difference. But at gig volume, I would err on the side of just using the post-phase inverter master, to be honest. The amp sounds great, like that. Unless you need to load it down and add effects and then all that stuff, and then you're, okay, now we get into, there's no downside at that point to using the power station. It gives you these advantages of adding an effect loop, and stuff like that. But if we're just talking about shaving off a bit of volume down to gig volume, I would just use the post-phase inverter master. It works great. Less fuss, no muss. And actually probably, save your tubes and help the amp be a little more reliable and stuff like that. What's the difference between Thornbucker 1 and 2? 1 plus and 2. Well, technically you've got the Thornbucker Plus, and then Thornbucker 2. Thornbucker 1 is about an 8.3 or 4K kind of affair, very PAF-y. And I like those just fine in Les Pauls and guitars like that. The Thornbucker Plus was I wanted a little bit more push in certain guitars, especially like alder guitars, bolt-on neck, 25.5 scale. I just felt like the Thornbucker, I wanted a little more out of it when it went in a guitar that had a bolt-on neck with maybe an alder body, as opposed to like a Les Paul. The original one, I feel like they work great in Les Pauls and stuff if you want a PAF thing. If you're looking for kind of the Seth Lover or Antiquity kind of output or whatever, look no further. It's got a great, version of that sound with our wind and all that. So, PAF. But yeah, little hotter is the Thornbucker Plus. And then the Thornbucker 2, A2 wound up with more winds on both coils. Still our wind, but wound up hotter. And 9K, and with the A2 magnet to kind of soften the top end a little bit, give you a little bit of that spongier bottom end, a little softer on the top end. I really like it with gain. I mean, it's great clean too, but it's a wonderful pickup for when you're... It's that balance of when you're using something like SL68, hot, plexi, bright, then if you warm the pickup up a little bit. Just a little. Yeah. How do you compare the clean channel of the PT100 to the Bella? Quite different. The Bella is going to be more of a... it's thicker through the mids. The PT100 has a more scooped sort of typically, mid-60s to late 60s Fender sound. The Bella is a little bit more full mid-range response, like a Dumble would be, it's a little bit fatter. Still, there's similarities there in both with 6L6s and stuff. Well, sorry, PT100s, EL34s. But if we were to compare, let's say, the PT100 is basically like up straight up somewhere between a Super and a Twin, the circuit, the bright switch and everything. The Bella is going to be fatter mids, a little more in your face mids. Yeah, same thing with the PT15 clean channel because it's based off the Bella, and I like both for different things, and you can kind of get your tone with either. I still love the original PT100 clean and the John's. Technically, I mean, it's very, very close to the same clean he's been doing ever since he invented the OD100. So, yeah, it's a fantastic clean channel. Probably sometimes here I've got the PT15 and then I got the PT100, and I'll be doing a pedal demo and I'll like, which one should I use for certain demos? And I go with the PT15, the clean sometimes, but I do find that probably just edging out is the PT100 because that clean channel with pedals, just you can make it work with any pedal. The PT100, it just has a wonderful sound with, you know, so it's a great canvas for like pedals and you know, whatever you want to add to it. It's a beautiful tone to add things to, you know, be it time-based effects or pedals or whatever. So 15 works great too, but maybe the 100 is just, there's something about that original, you know, Leo had it dialed at that point as far as clean sounds go. Yeah. Okay. Ben's here. Hi, Ben. He says he's lurking. What's up, you lurker? Modern Vintage. Which Karstens amp was used in your post? So, yeah, I'm making a video for a Karstens 21 amplifier, and yes, I do have that here right now, and it's sitting right beside me, actually. And yeah, it's coming out in April, I do believe. Karstens is a company that's making an amp for Billy Corgan. They've got his signature model. This is basically a smaller version of that amp, I think, a 20-watt version. It's quite a high gain affair, with a master and the typical master gain and simple, you know, bass, middle, treble presence, and a bright switch. That's it. There's no effect loop, nothing. It's just like a very, very, very simple sort of pure amp. It's quite dynamic when you roll the volume up and down. I wouldn't say that it's a clean channel, you know. I mean, pretty much right out of the gate, you're getting grind, but I think he designed it to really work with the volume control on the guitar. That's the idea. And it is quite dynamic. It's quite big and grindy sounding. It doesn't sound like a Marshall. It sounds like, if anything, it's probably closer to an SLO or something, but maybe with even more girth. And for a guy like Billy that was famous using I was talking about this with Friedman the other day. He says that Billy only used the Big Muff on one album. Billy Corgan, you know, on one album. I was like, really? I thought he used it on more than one. And he's like, no, he used it on one album. I'm like, I'm not sure about that. But anyways, that's what Dave said. But anyways, became famous for that, you know, whatever. If it's Siamese Dream, great. If it's that great big fat wall of, you know, cherub rock or whatever guitar sound, this amp makes a lot of sense to me. It's like a purer tube version of that sound, less of a fuzz pedal and more of just a great big wall of, you know, that's the way it sounds. So it's got a big fat grindy but very nice, you know, distortion sound to it, which would appeal to, if we had to compare it to a vintage amp, I would say orange. You know, it's got a great big bottom end, and it's not the tightest sound in the world when you get the gain up there, but that's not the thing that it's doing. It's a bit more, if you're into, yeah, if you're in, I could see it really appealing to, you know, people that are into Billy or Queens of the Stone Age or Fu Manchu or, you know, like a little more that big grindy huge sound, and then being dynamic and all that. So it's cool. I'm really enjoying the song I'm coming up with it. I'm probably going to put out a video for it on Wednesday, I think. If not Wednesday or Thursday, so midweek. There's something else coming out on Tuesday that I'm finishing up a video for that I can't tell you about, but it's a new thing, and that's going to be really cool. So that's coming to an amp thing. I got so much to get to. With NAMM coming, there's just all kinds of stuff coming. So it's going to be a very busy couple weeks in here of working on music and songs and videos and stuff. It's fun. Anyways, okay, there's another super chat I just grabbed there. That's Rock and Rolling. What's up? I have a Strat that I built and the neck is straight, but the strings are too high off the frets. Any suggestions on shims? I mean, shims is always kind of a last resort to me, although necessary on many guitars. Totally necessary. I have them on quite a few guitars. My vintage Strat, I think, has a shim. Sometimes you just need it to, and I'll use a business card generally. You know, that's what I use. I gotta sneeze. I'm sorry. It's just spring or something. I'm getting like allergies happening. But if there's a way around the shim, like if have you already got the bridge back down as far as you can without it kind of, you know, bottoming out or something, and the bridge saddles, you know, just try one. Take a business card and slice just the end of it, you know, so you just got a very thin, long rectangle. Put that under the end of the neck and tighten her back up and see how you do. You know, that's what I always do. So, Simon, what's up, dude? How are you? Currently watching Jesse Smith gigging in Portsmouth. Cool. Jesse, of course, classic rock show singer, and great, amazing singer, and he's out on a solo tour right now. Portsmouth's a nice town. That's cool. Simon, I'm still working on a video for your guitar, thinking about what I'm going to do. It's a long story. I don't want to spoil the story, so it's going to have its own video coming soon with a little interview from this gentleman, Simon. And more on that to come. Yeah. Have fun. Say hi to Jesse for me if you see him after the show, please. Tell him I said to turn around. Let's see. Buzz says that he uses credit cards for shims. That would be quite thick, I would think. I like the business card approach because you can get, sometimes all you need is just like one, like that's as much as you need, you know? So, but literally, yeah, like business card thickness. A credit card, I mean, might work if you really need to, just that's a pretty thick piece of plastic, so. Have you tried the blue guitar amp? Sort of. I haven't spent any amount of time with it, although I know the builder. He's been here, and I've played gigs with him and stuff in Germany. Thomas, he's a great guy. And I've heard him play through it. We've actually been on stage together when he's been using it, and I've been plugged into something else. So I am interested in it, and he's been somewhat of a pioneer of that kind of stuff, like really the pedal board based amp thing. I mean, he's had some version of that for a number of years now. So. Yeah. Zigbert says, what or how many cameras do you use in your video productions? I'm trying to make some gear videos, struggling getting my setup together. It's always a struggle. You know, these days, if you've got good lighting, you can literally use iPhones, you know, but it's probably good to have one good camera. I'm a Canon guy. I've got a Canon, I believe it's called the XA55. That's my main camera. I'm a video camera guy. It's a video camera. It's not a DSLR style or mirrorless, you know, one of those, although most people use those. But I just like having a dedicated video camera. My video camera is really cool because it actually has, for folks that are interested in this, I'll just take a quick picture of it. You can see this. It's sitting right here on a stand in front of my great big light. So you'll be able to see this. So you see the mic that's on top? It's literally, there's the camera, and then it's got a mic that looks like a 414 mounted on the top on a thing. That's actually a Lewitt mic that is kind of like a 414, but that's what you hear me talk through when I'm doing my videos, mainly. It's that microphone on top of my camera. Now you can see the XLR cable coming out of the microphone right into the camera. My camera has 2 XLR inputs on it, and it records 4 tracks of audio all the time. So my thinking was, if I ever wanted to go to a trade show like NAMM, whatever, something like that, and actually have a great camera, I could take this and actually have like a, you know, a 57 or something in front of an amplifier, and then have like a separate handheld mic to talk through, and all that would be getting tracked right into the camera, along with the internal 2 stereo microphones. So you've got all these options as far as audio goes. So that was a big part of why I got this camera too, was the audio stuff. Have I ever used that like I just laid out? No. I haven't actually, but I do enjoy having the Lewitt up there for my voice. It sounds really good, even though it's back quite far. I think the talking in my videos works well, you know, and it like as far as the audio quality goes. So it's worked out good. So that's the camera I use. It's a kind of low-end pro video camera. You know, it's the bottom of Canon's sort of pro range. You can spend a lot of money on video cameras, obviously, or on any kind of camera. But they're $2,500 or $2,000 or something like that, I think. Now, the main thing that you want to do if you're making videos is your lighting. You got to get some good lighting. I've got 2 big lights on me. I've just got a $100 Logitech camera here that you're seeing me through right now. That's the and it looks a little overexposed actually as it is right now. But when I upped my lighting game, I've got a massive diffuser light, you know, sitting right here, and you can kind of see it in that. This it looks like this. I'll show you what it looks like. Right, that huge thing. And you'll see them in many videos of, like, you know, Ola or Rick Beato. You know, he's got proper lighting. And it was really watching those guys. I was like, I got to get one of those big lights with the diffuser if I want my videos to start looking better. And then color grading and all the things that you got to learn about, you know. It's all kind of important to make it look good. And I don't feel like I'm that great at it yet, but my videos has looked better when I got that light. I turned it on, filmed something, and then I imported the video, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes all the difference in the world just instantly, you know, just looked better. So there's a lot more to it than cameras, I guess, you know, is what I'm getting at. But if you have good lighting, you can get away with almost consumer grade cameras, you know. I mean, even iPhones, like I say, they shoot great videos. Do you like soft tube plugins? I have a couple. It's from Braxel. Like the soft tube Drummer 73 limiter mastering thing is really great. The soft tube, what's the other one that I've been using? Oh, they do the Sunset Sound Reverb, which is exceptional. You know, that has it. They've modeled where Eddie did his guitars and everything, and has that amazing chamber reverb. They've got a great recreation of that soft tube reverb. It's only like $99, that plugin. It's fantastic. So, anyways, so there's a couple that I use from them, and then recently I've talked to them about doing a couple other like videos for upcoming things and stuff, products and stuff. So we'll see. Yeah. Have you ever played a Seriatone hot rodded plexi? I heard one recently. Seriatone, I haven't really played their amps a lot, but Ichiro, the other guitar player that I was playing with when I was over in Japan playing with Yoshi Nagabuchi, Ichiro had a Seriatone Dumble, and he used that for a whole tour. It sounded cool. And then recently I did see I don't know if it was the Chupacabra or the Yeti or which model it was, but it was a kind of a Jose kitchen sink Mod Marshall thing. It sounded pretty good. It was a little, it wasn't quite there for me, but it could probably be modded to be there, you know. There was something about it. It sounded a little, I don't even remember what, when I was comparing it to kind of the real thing, AB. I can't remember what it was. It just it wasn't quite there, but that's not here nor there. It wasn't very scientific. I was just like, I don't know. An amp doesn't quite sound right to me. But anyways, I'll try one again one of these days, I'm sure. Would an MXR micro boost overdrive a plexi more? Well, yeah, any boost into the front end of an amp will kick the front end into more distortion, basically. You're getting the distortion out of the amp, you know, driving it harder in the front end. People are sort of more, they're more experienced with this stuff these days. So most folks know like a mid boost or a treble boost, or the difference between those and a clean boost, which is just full range boost. The differences in the sound are going to be kind of the full range boost will get just more gain and all that, but because it's full range, it'll also get a little less tight, a little sloppier into the front end, you know. If you do a mid boost, you might get a little more you know, it'll feel a little more built into the amp and a little less. Yeah, when you boost an amp, generally, let's say like even like a Jose tube stage in the front end of an amplifier, his gain boost, right, had a lot of low end lopped out of it, and some top end, and so you've almost got what it ended up being somewhat of a mid-range boost built into the front end, a tube mid-range boost running at high voltage, really. And that's why it was able to stay tight and defined, is that Jose thing, that kind of like razor attack and like gainy and lots of harmonics and all that, but without getting sloppy in the front end of a plexi. So just keep that in mind when you're hitting the front end of a plexi or something. If you just do a full range, it'd almost be like, what if he had put a tube into the front end but with no tone shaping, you know, if there wasn't anything lopped off the lows and all that going into the. So it's important to just keep that in mind. It's why a tube screamer or an SD1 or OD1 or whatever works pretty good into the front end of an amp for a similar thing. It's like poor man's version of that, you know, because they lop off a lot of bass, and so things stay relatively tight. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it just depends on the kind of gain sound you want to end up with. What Ron Ellis Telly set do you have in your 66? It's a the mid-tall, I believe, neck pickup. I think it's called the 5060 set with a mid-tall neck pickup. Don't know what that means, but it sounds great. He makes very nice pickups. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Quentin says that he took his girls to the Taylor Swift show last night. She had 2 guitars solo during one of her changeovers. They were represented throughout the night. Good for her. Yeah, one of them, Max Bernstein, we've kind of become friends recently. I got to know him a little bit at least. And he's a very nice guy and hard worker and does a lot of stuff here in town. And he's out there with her right now. So hope he's having a great time on tour. And yeah, it looks like quite a show. Looks like quite a show. All right. Is a Helix really worse than an all-analog setup? I mean, no. I wouldn't say so. It's not about worse or better. It's about, kind of like what, for many people, the Helix would be better than an all-analog setup because it's all in one and it travels easily and it's just simple to plug into and plug out of and get, you know what I mean? So define is worse like the ultimate sound, I mean, if you know how to tweak a Helix, you can get great sound out of it and end up with a great result. And everybody, your paycheck will be the same as if you showed up with a great big all-analog pedal board. As long as it sounds good and the boss is happy. That's kind of the way I look at things, I love pedal boards and I love the, the kind of modular aspect of them and all that and messing around with all this stuff. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, Helix is the perfect thing to use for this because it just is. I mean, I did a tour last year with the Quad Cortex and basically a couple pedals and a quad. That was it, and I'll probably do that again this summer. We'll see when I go out again with the same band. So I'm doing a summer tour with Five for Fighting, on that note. That's a nice segue. With Bare Naked Ladies and Delamitri, the great Delamitri. So we will be traveling across the sort of the south and then up the East Coast and into the Midwest, I think, June through July. So come see us. It's called the Last Summer on Earth Tour, I think. Let's hope not. But that's what it's called. Yeah. Okay, what are you guys talking about? Stealth Parrot is building a Les Paul style guitar. What do I recommend for an affordable non-trem bridge tailpiece? Go Tone Pros. I like their stuff. Tone Pros. Tone Pros. Might not be the cheapest, but it's hardware. It's important. Yeah. Chris says, fascinating to hear Bukovac explain what he's hearing and why things work for him or don't, especially his comments on track layering. I'll have to watch that video of his pedal shootout. Let's see here. John says, I've just sold 12 of my 16 pedals, wanting to run my Tonex and H90, but to be honest, I'm freaking out. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. It's okay. It'll all work. It'll all work. Or at least it should. Tell us how it goes, though. Report back in a couple weeks. Do pickups make a bigger difference than the wood of a guitar does? That's a good question. Bigger difference. I would say, even that we have these tone wood debates, and some people don't believe the wood makes any difference. I disagree. But do I think the pickup makes a bigger difference? Maybe. Probably a safe bet. I mean, the difference between the sound of a Strat single coil and a PAF or a super distortion is pretty big. So it's like, yeah, in that case, switching from an Alder to an Ash body or switching from a Strat single coil to a super distortion, definitely the pickup will be the bigger difference. So it just, I guess it depends a little bit more on your particular situation. What you're talking about. The difference between two PAFs of this similar strength, one from, say, a Duncan versus a more boutique manufacturer or something, then will there be as big of a difference? Maybe not. But if you're going from a P90 to a JB, pretty going to be a difference, there. That's pretty noticeable by just about anybody, you know. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Alan says that his parents used to work for Western Electric back in the day. Used to be tube testers there used to be tube testers at local drugstores. Yeah, you'd go in and test your tubes and see if you need to buy new ones, and you could just buy tubes everywhere, couldn't you? Because everything had tubes. This is a long time ago. But yeah. Yep. Okay. Let's see. Any thoughts on Celestion 75, says JJ. Never my favorite speaker, but they work well with some things, you know. An example is Eddie Van Halen evidently used them on the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album once he started going with Soldano. He liked the way that those speakers sounded with that amp. I think they're Yngwie's favorite speaker. For me, they always just sounded a little weird, like a little papery in not a good way. I don't know how else to describe it, but not my favorite speaker. That said, and a little, like, I've had cabinets with them that show up where I'm just downright like, God, that distortion sounds grainy and not good, like, you know, with that speaker. That said, I've used one a few times. With the PT100, I used one on tour in France. I was running Torpedo Lives with IRs in them that I'd made in my studio. This is back in 2016 on this French tour. And I ran in stereo those IRs to the PA. My sound was great and my in-ears sounded really good, but I had a cab on stage that was just a rented backline cab, just to be able to get some feedback and a little bit of, sometimes I wanted to pull the in-ears out and just play with the drums on stage and stuff, so I had a cab up there. It was a 75 loaded cab. That's just what showed up. I had requested a V30 cab. That didn't happen. As you know, sometimes that doesn't happen. You don't get what you ask for. But it was it was in good shape. The speakers weren't beat up, and they were 75s. Sounded pretty good. I remember on that tour going like, these aren't so bad. They sound okay, you know. They weren't mic'd or anything. It's not what the crowd was hearing. It's not even what I was hearing in my ears. It was just purely an on-stage thing. But I remember going like, all right, not so bad. Ron says, what are your thoughts on guitar companies leaning to buy direct? Not a fan of buying a guitar I haven't played and bonded with. Well, it's a tough thing these days. You know, it is kind of the way that a lot of companies are going, you know, just because you're cutting out the middleman with inflation and stuff, and, you know, not having a distributor and if it's just direct, right, you're going to be able to charge maybe the customer something similar to what you would normally charge a dealer, you know, and then avoid that markup, or, you know, the shipping to all the stuff that adds up to costs and stuff. So there's advantages for the consumer, but the disadvantage is, yeah, you don't get to play it, and you're kind of cutting out, you know, what it's like. I love Sweetwater, for example. They're a great company, you know, but I also love mom and pop guitar stores, and it would be sad if those weren't around anymore, you know. I guess it would also be sad, you know, Sweetwater's a big business, they're not going anywhere, but you know what I mean. You're sort of like, they do want their cut, though, and the mom and pop store wants their cut. So I don't know, like, what, you know, it depends on the product, I think, often, you know. A guitar, it's tough to think about buying sight unseen, but they're getting more and more consistent these days, it seems. Guitars aren't what they used to be, are they? Like, it's like, used to be like, it was pretty wildly inconsistent, you know. And that still exists, I guess, to some degree. But it's like, I know when I get a Sur that it's going to be a good guitar. It's not going to leave the factory, you know, unless it's a really, really, really good guitar. They're all pretty good. Like, there's no dogs. It's like Taylor's, I found, are like that, too, for acoustics. They're at least good. You know, when you get them, it's like, this is a good guitar, all the way to this is a really great guitar. So there's more consistency, I think, these days. Maybe that's just with the advent of, you know, just quality control and CNCs and, like, things becoming, you know, a little more predictable. I don't know. That's the way it feels anyway. So the pros and cons, you know, but it's an interesting question, though. It's a good debate. Certainly for certain products, electronic products and things, I see no downside to buying direct, you know, and, you know, you're not going to, it just makes sense for some things, you know. Michael's asking about the building that I'm in. I sort of don't really publicize much about this place because that's just what I like to do. But it's an industrial building, you know, with high security. and a lot of dogs. Surrounded by an electric fence and a moat. Yeah. 24/7 armed guards. Other music studios. Yeah, there is, actually. There is. And windows? What's a window? Who needs that? I don't need any natural light. Look at my pasty skin. Trying to avoid skin cancer over here. Come on. I would love a window, to be honest, but one of these days. Are you currently working on the PT50? I currently working on. I did. John's. He's got the basics all there. It's a question of. Last I heard, he was working with a CAD program that he's just learning the ins and outs of, so he can design it. He wanted to do it with this new type of CAD software. So I don't really understand exactly the ins and outs of that, but that's what he told me. So we'll get to it. It's gonna happen, but I can't give you any. I'm not gonna blow smoke and tell you it's gonna be in 2 months or something. Weeze says, Les Paul pickup suggestions. Playing a PT100 hard rock, not metal, something more aggressive and cutting. More hair, less grain. More hair, less grain, and less honk. Rock and hard rock. I'm thinking hard about this here. Not metal. Something more aggressive and cutting. More hair, less grain. Maybe something like a... If I'm going to not suggest one of my own pickups, what I'm going to suggest is a Motor City, what's the pickup called? Damn, forget the name of it. I'm gonna do a search for you though, my friend. Motor City. One sec here. We're going to find this. Second degree black belt. Let's read his description. Everything just a little more of the black. If the black belt is a V6, think of the second degree black belt as a V8. Traditionally overwound vintage pickup turned to garble mush, not the second degree black belt. It's got more mids and push than its old school cousin, but stays clear as freshly polished chrome. A carefully calibrated neck pickup dishes out warm solos, but also has great bite. Graduate to the next rank, young grasshopper. Put another notch in your belt. You've earned it. Anyway, great pickup. The second degree black belt, if you can find one of those. I think that's kind of maybe what you're after. Anything else? Anything else? Maybe something like a Screaming Demon. I'm thinking not too hot. I'm thinking of the 10K, If you went with a Sir pickup, something along the lines of a, let's look at, I forget the names of their pickups too. I don't even try anymore with the memory thing. I want to sit and like, what is it again? I'm just, it is what it is. The memory is a funny thing as you age. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Oops. Okay. I was gonna recommend a Sir pickup here. Just bear with me just for 1 second. Don't go anywhere. Stay with me. Pickups. Here we go. Humbuckers. Okay, SSH. That was the one I was gonna say. You can get an SSH in different SSH bridge. I would probably just go SSH. It's the gap between vintage and hot, providing strong output, pronounced mids that will push the front end of a tube amp, but sweet, open-sounding vintage-style tonality. It's going to be like less hot than something like a JB, and I think they're around 11K or something like that. I don't know if they publish the exact specs here. DC resist, it's 12.8 for an SSH. SSH Plus is 17, quite hot, But yeah. And it's an Alnico 5 magnet. So something tells me when you say you want more aggressive and cutting, more hair, less grain, less honk. When you say honk, I think a word like honk, I think hot A2. More hair, less grain. You know, more hair, like that. It just sounds like you want an A5 pickup to me. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. Those pickups from Rewind Electric sounded like good pickups, but expensive. Yeah, the fellow from Rewind, nice guy. A great interview the other day on Tone Talk with Friedman and Mark. His pickups are a little bit on the expensive side, but, you know, he's a one-man operation, inflation, and the cost of doing business and all that. But he does make nice pickups. He sent me 2 for that EVH pickup shootout that I did here. One was a sort of his version of a distortion, and the other one was his version of a 9K PAF a la Rewound Eddie sort of thing. And they both sound really good. You can hear them in that video. Yeah. Okay, what else are you guys talking about? Curious if anyone's used Fry-Up Power Station with PT15 to get more volume. Well, I use it here because I have done that because not out of, you know, trying to get more volume. It will give you more volume with the tone of the amp. Sure. You could do that. You know, you could also use I mean, that's one way to go. Yeah, you could do that. Or you could also use a power amp coming out of the output of the PT15, the line out, because you could just disable the IRs and then come right out into a tube power amp or into something like a matrix or something. Because once the reactive load's involved there, you've got a bit of that, you know, the reactive component, once again, like we started talking about when I started today, is going to be there. So maybe something like I'm just saying that maybe a cheaper way to go is something like a matrix or a Rocktron Velocity, you know, one of those ones with the built-in kind of damping and, you know, reactive kind of component to them. If you can find a used one, you know. But yeah, a power station would work. You can, yeah, I mean, you've effectively made the amp 100 watts then, or a 50 watt if it's the first version of the power station. So yeah, William says, sounds like he's going to try and put out EL34 and 84. This is the fellow from Western Electric. All the kind of standard guitar tubes. I think he wants to do 34s, 84s, 6L6, 6V6, and 12AX7s, and kind of, you know, have a domestically produced alternative to, you know, for folks that want great tubes that last a long time. I'm 100% behind that. That's obviously awesome, and I hope he succeeds, you know, and that they're not too much money. I mean, what's too much money? I don't know, you know. A pair of EL34s, if they're $200, that's a lot of money, you know. If they're $100, they're not that much more than trying to buy a pair of, you know, getting a pair of the PS Vane from Tube Amp Doctor shipped. They cost me $70 when I did that. So if it was $100 and they were like, these will last 4 times as long, sure, why not? You know, you end up saving money in the end. So I just think they have to be somewhat reasonable. Now, as far as being OEM kind of like, or like, you know, if they're going to come in Marshalls or in Fenders, probably not at that price still, right? So I guess he's got to figure out, and what he can even build, you know, with the manufacturing equipment he's got, you know, how like scale of production, how much could he make, you know, for a tube amp company that required a certain amount of tubes for their amps, you know. So maybe it'll be a smaller thing, maybe it'll be a mid-sized thing, maybe it'll end up being very successful. Maybe nothing will happen. But it sounds like he's well on his way to... I guess he got some tube equipment from Blackburn, right? Some of it came from... must be from Mullard. It sounds like... Like, it was interesting in the article, they didn't really specify what happened, but he had bid on some equipment and won it, and then the equipment ended up going to Slovakia or something, and then he ended up getting it from there. I wonder, it sounded like, did the equipment go to JJ, and then like he's like, no, it's mine, and then they had some sort of legal battle over it, and then he ended up getting it? I don't know. It's an interesting story, but yeah, for those that don't know what the hell I'm talking about Western Electric, right? That's the name of the company. Making tubes in South Carolina. And he's ramping up production and going to make a 12AX7 and supposedly try and make EL34s and 6L6s and stuff. And it's actually happening. There was an article in Wired about it, and he wants, his goal is to start selling this summer 12AX7s. I look forward to it. I want to try this guy's tubes. I do. Western Electric plant in Rossville, Georgia will be manufacturing more guitar amp tubes of all types. It's good news. It's good news. It's good news. Okay. Would you ever want, here's a nice question actually, I like this question, a PT amp with more of a Vox clean channel? That would work better for me. You know what, Chris? I would actually. I love Vox cleans. That'd be great. Even just a Vox normal with the bright, you know, pre-top boost, but that circuit. The Brilliant channel is, I guess, what it's technically called, you know, on an early 60s AC30. That'd be a great clean to have. And yeah, I love them. I do. I wonder what it would sound like in the PT15, you know, like a channel like that, or how easy it would be to implement. I guess it's only it's a single volume knob, isn't it? So there's not even a tone. Like, it's a volume knob with the channel has low end lopped out of it. It's got a bright switch, and then it's tied to, there's nothing but a cut control. So it's a very simple circuit. As simple as it gets. Would you route out an early 70s Strat to install a humbucker? At this point, no, because, you know, I would have probably back in the day, and then there'd be a time when I wouldn't have, and now at this point it's like, well, why would I don't know, like, it seems like, you know, there's so many guitar companies out there now. You can get guitars made and get, you know, why, I don't know. I mean, if the guitar had been modded in other ways, I might consider it, you know. If it was like a really cool Strat and it was like it had already had been Floyded or refinned or something at some point, and it was just a 70s one that wasn't necessarily, you know, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I was like, this would make a cool guitar, like a big headstock with a humbucker, and, you know, kind of be neat. But I probably wouldn't do it if it was original and nice, you know, only if it had been hacked, and, you know, then it'd be like, all right, who cares? Let's do it, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Todd says the fart pedal video was pretty funny. Thanks. I realized it would make the ultimate April Fool's Day video. It's like, I told the fellow I would make a video for him, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, oh, April Fool's Day is coming. Perfect. It was actually somebody on the show last week. Who was it? Which one of you was it that suggested it? That's where I got the idea. Somebody on this show. I owe it all to you. Of course, it's my biggest video in a while. I should just do stupid stuff, right? Just quit with, like, you know, the stop being serious. I'm just going to take a look in here and see where it's at. On Reels, it's almost at 70,000 plays on Reels. On IG. And it's hilarious. And on YouTube, where are we at? It's 18, yeah, it's almost 20,000. It's 18.7, so it'll be at 20,000 in a couple hours. Silliness. Silly. Just silly. We need a single amp channel version of the PT100 channel 1 as a pedal platform. I think that'd be great as well. You kind of got that with the Bella, although everything I said earlier, I mean, it's a different clean, but that's what the Bella was designed to do. It also works great. So the Bella head is an absolutely terrific, you know, version of that. But yeah, be cool to have a single channel PT, you know, or I mean, it's John's, you know, what would he call it, you know? The ODCH1 or something, you know, because it's his clean channel that's basically straight up Fender clean. It would work great for pedals as well. You know, how would you go about dialing in a Soldano for 90 TVH tones? I'm not exactly sure the way that Ed actually set. You know, it's interesting. I'd love to. I'd have to do a little bit of research into that as well to see how he kind of set the Soldano. But I find a Soldano, to be honest, I mean, kind of everything on 5, and then I tweak from there. You know. And nothing is too far off from 5. I'm including the master in that. Something happens on an SLO when the master's up really high, like in between. Like I'm talking when it's at a ripping gig volume, like between 4 and 5.5. It just goes and it sounds like really great. Like at a certain point, you know, on the master. It's really loud at that point, but it just sounds really good. But yeah, you know, honestly, I mean, I never run the gain past 6 on one. That's really high gain to me. The preamp volume, and then the, you know, bass I probably got on 4 or something, and then the mids, you know, 4 to 5 to something. The treble I might have a 5.5, and the presence 4 to 5.5, somewhere in there, you know. And that's how it just sounds really good to me. I'm not sure if he did that or not, or if what he did with the, you know, the way the mids are on them. You don't have to cut the mids really. It's got, I think they're sort of scooped anyway, you know. It's like, so I tend to run the mids up at 5, or, you know. Yeah. Okay, what else have we got here? I think I'm pretty far back in the chat, guys, aren't I? So maybe I should move down substantially here. Let's see. Charles is just saying that he really likes the Golden Pearl and Buxom pedal. Phenomenal for bass. Great tones out of my 69 EB3. That's interesting. Using those guitar pedals for bass. I could see how the Golden Pearl would work really well for that. Buxom's a boost. I'm going to sneeze again. Holy hell. Springtime allergies. You get out of the winter just long enough to get over your, you know, winter cold flu illnesses just in time to hit spring and have, I mean, I think I need antihistamine. Everybody asked me about this solo. Jan, the Nuno solo. It was great. He's ripping on it. Van Halen Techro. I know what you mean. Ronnie LaTecro. How many people knew what Techro meant? How many of you out there? I knew. We're old guys, aren't we, Jan? No, it's a ripping solo for sure. Really great. Let's see. What's the best venue experience you've had? Oh, man, that's a great question. Great venues all over the world. In the United States, I've got a few that I remember. It's always nice to go to the Mountain Winery because it's a winery. It's always nice to one club in America, and there's probably a bunch because, you know, honestly, the last 10 years I toured mostly out of the country. But my favorite clubs that I remember in the United States, there's a place, I think it's called the Paramount in Long Island. That's a great one that we just went to last summer. So that sticks in my mind. There's another one in Milwaukee that's also great because it's got a guy downstairs making coffee all day, like really good coffee, and they've got LPs and a turntable down there. It's the little things that count. It's a really cool venue, downtown Milwaukee, but I don't remember the name of the place. The Norva in Norfolk, Virginia, that is a great venue. But this is, once again, going back over 10 years is when I remember going, this is a great venue. I always like playing 930 in DC. That's a cool place. Where else? I always like playing House of Blues, to be honest, you know, for clubs in the U.S. because the food was always pretty good, and it was like they take care of you. The dressing rooms are nice. You know, it was like, oh, this was a pleasant experience playing here today. The best venue. I mean, it's like, I remember playing, you know, 2,000-year-old, Roman era, amphitheaters in France with Michel Polnareff, some amazing places in Nantes. There's one, and just these incredible venues where you play, and it's like, you know, oh, Red Rocks. That's an amazing one. That was cool. In that way, you know, you go there and it's like, oh, this legendary place. It's cool. Budokan was, you know, just because it's Budokan. It's not, it's hot. It doesn't sound particularly good. You know, the dressing rooms aren't great, but it's Budokan. So there's that big Japanese flag, and you remember seeing pictures of the Beatles with that, and it's just like, it's legendary. So really cool. There's a few. Are you releasing videos for the new 2023 UA gear? There's something coming that I'm doing with them. I can't say what it is, but something. Yes, something. That is happening. What do I think of the Adam Jones Les Paul Standard? I've never played it, to be honest, but cool looking. Okay, moving down more in the chat. I've probably missed some super chats here that I got to get to. Evan says that he watched Big Wreck last night, and Thorn is a monster on guitar and vocals are off the charts. He's the triple threat, man. Like, crazy good writer, crazy good singer, one of the best in rock, and then plays guitar like that. It's like, give me a break, you know. He's kind of one of a kind. Who does what he does, you know? Nobody. He's a sweet guy, too. Great dude. What do I think about Marshall being sold to Zound? I don't really know. You know, it's like Dave said the other day, I think Marshall sort of stopped being Marshall years ago. I don't know if I feel quite that harsh about. I mean, I feel like Marshall, kudos to them, they at least still made some hand wires and the plexi models and stuff. They're pretty cool. You know, like the Super SLP and the JCM 800, you know, good amp, the stuff they've been doing, you know, even the Studio Vintage series, good amps. So, you know, I think that only time will tell. It's just like Mesa, like I was saying, going to Gibson, you know? It's like that seems to have worked out. Somebody was saying in the chat that I should make a video of the new Mark 7. By the way, what happened to the Mark 6? Does anybody, isn't that, they never did a Mark 6, but they went straight to Mark 7, right? So, anyways, I would like to make a video of one of their amps, to be honest, because I never have. And one of the new ones would be an interesting thing to do. So if anybody knows anybody over there, since I'm doing some amp videos now, tell them to come see me. But they tend to do things, well, I guess Ola's done videos for him and stuff. I don't know. I don't even know if they'd be interested in having me do it, but I would do it. Yeah. Anyway, with Marshall, we'll see. Only time will tell. Maybe it'll be great, you know? Kind of like when Gibson changed hands, you know, the new CEO and stuff. That seems to have gone good for them. I mean, people don't bag on them as much as they used to. That's for sure, you know? It's a little bit of a return to form, I think, right? Seems to be overall like it was a positive thing when they were sold. Horst is asking if I've ever played an ESP Purple Tiger George Lynch. I haven't. I have no idea what the neck is like. I could ask George. Dustin says, thanks for answering my question. I'm glad to hear the Helix isn't bad. I have a lot of telling me it's bad, but now I don't feel so horrible. No, the Helix is great, man. I saw somebody play one at a gig last weekend, and I thought the guitar tones were really good. They were kind of affected guitar tones with lots of verb and stuff, but great player, and it sounded good, you know? Really good. Oh my God, I saw somebody playing the other night in Pasadena. I forgot about this. Man, there's some, every now and then you stumble on something, you're just like, listen to that. This cat plays, they're there a lot on the weekends at this place called Edwin Mills in Pasadena. And this dude was ripping a solo, and it was killer. Let me see if I can find it. I took a video of it, but, oh, there it is. Listen to this. Yeah, burning. Little jazz trio, great. I mean, you know, upright bass and drums and guitar, and the guy was a great singer too. He had a very, like, you know, appropriate voice for that style of music. It was killer, so that was fun. What got me onto that? I don't know. I don't even know how I ended up telling you about that. Thoughts on? Oh, I already answered this one. Power station increase PT15. It'll work great. Just terrific. You'll have a 100-watt PT15. Torn between two 12 cabs, slant or non-slant, and, excuse me, are MDF cabs really that bad? Personally, you know, it just depends. I like a birch cabinet. I mean, I like cabinets that are made out of the stuff that they used to make. I don't know. I mean, I love my old Marshall cabinets, but my Marshall cabinet's a MDF back, right? It's a late 70s one, so... But the rest of the cabinet is, you know, it's a good solid Marshall 70s cab. So for practicing live, I would use, it's too hard to say. You need to listen to it, you know, to see it. If you like the sound, then the sound is good. You know, if the sound is good, then the sound is good. 212 cabs slant or non-slant. The kind of the vertical ones with the top that slants back, that's kind of never been my favorite. I mean, my favorite 212s are starting with the Bogner oversized. That one sounded really good to me. With the PT original PT100 212, the horizontal one, we went a little smaller than that. We experimented with some different cabinets, and it's got a nice depth to it. So it's got the PT212 is fantastic, I must say. Like, and they're both really good. The original one is really terrific, you know, for like, it's basically has a similar to that Bogner oversized, but without as much sort of low woof. It's just a little bit tighter than that, but still sounds big for like the size without being as big. So check that out. The one that we did for the PT15 is also very cool. It's the exact dimensions, basically, of those Marshall cabs that they put out for the 2061X. It's with the speakers arrayed like this, you know, and it's basically a square. Looks like a baby 412, right? And I've always loved, I had a 410 version of that in the 80s with my Marshall MOSFET, you know, and then they did a 212 version of it for their 20-watt hand-wired head. And essentially, we you know, I always liked that cabinet. I always thought it sounded great with those heads, so we went for that, you know. And those sound great to me. It's got a mix of greenback and V30 in it. It's a really nice cab. So I've never really bonded, though, with the... They just sound like, you know, for example, the Boogies with the half open back and the top slants back. I'm not really into that style of cabinet. I think when you separate the speakers like that and one's in, you know, you're not getting there's something about a cabinet. A 412 does this, and 810 does it, where the speakers develop the bass when the interior of the cabinet's a big part of the way the cabinet sounds, I think. You can turn down like on a 412 on an old Marshall, you can turn the bass way down, but the cabinet still has thump and sounds really good, and that helps keep things tight. And that's because the cabinet itself has got the volume inside, the space, right? I mean, to develop its own kind of low end, and it's a certain particular kind of low end that I like. In a 212, it's always challenging, but that's why I say on the original horizontal PT212, there's a nice depth. We tried a thinner one first, like it wasn't as deep, and I was like, I think we need to go deeper. There needs to be more cabinet, you know? So we went up one side, like added another inch or something to the depth. It was like, that's much better. Sounds great. And that cabinet gets it's got a lot of fans, that 212, the original PT one. So you'll see it on the SIR website. It's a horizontal 212 with the speakers. It's got H75 creambacks in it, and it's a really, really good 212, I think. Especially for, you know, it's wide enough that you can put any 100-watt head on it, and it'll work. And it's got enough power handling. I hope that's helpful. Sipo says, your new SIG guitar looks so nice. Never played an X shape like that. Seems like it would be great. Can you tell us about it? Yeah, it's just it feels not dissimilar at all to my mid-60s Strat. It's got a little more depth and width to it than the Even C Slim. So it's a little bit of a bigger neck, but it's really nice in the shoulders. It doesn't have too much shoulder. So what that translates to is it's almost got a soft V down low, up to about the 5th fret. Very subtle V, but you'll feel it. It's just a little bit. And it feels really good for chords and stuff down in below the 5th position. And then it just becomes a nice C above that. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's more vintage than modern feeling, I would say. But the guitar is a 10 to 14 compound radius, so then it all kind of balances out, you know. Yeah. Mike's Guitar and Gear says you use video editing programs to sync your audio and video. I use Final Cut Pro to do everything. So all my audio is basically the guitar stuff is all recorded in Logic, and then I bounce everything out of Logic, pull it into Final Cut Pro, and sync it up to the camera audio, and then I get rid of the camera audio generally, except for the talking part. Yeah. Let's see. Ever play a body made of plexi? I don't think so. Maybe other than maybe one of those Dan Armstrong, you know, those mid-70s kind of ones with the you know, that you see the Stones use a little bit and stuff. But I think I played one of those in stores. Just like, this is a wacky guitar, but I don't remember anything about it. Why are Western Electric 300Bs 10K a pair? I don't think they're 10K a pair. I thought they're 1,500 a pair. I think. the Western Electric 300Bs. They're a, you know, esoteric boutique kind of thing. Those tubes for hi-fi guys. And they'll also last a really, really long time. Lyle sent us over to watch your live feed. Awesome. Glad you're here. There's quite a few people online. We've got 420 people here. It's fantastic. I'm glad you're all here. Let's keep going. What do you think of the Creamback line? And do you have any experience with Eminence? Only a little bit with Eminence because I'm such a diehard Celestian guy. I really want to try some Fanes. I really want to try some Fanes. So one of these days I'm going to order a bunch of Fanes. And I've heard nothing but good things about these latest, was it F70 and the Fane Alnico that James was using, other guitar player in Classic Rock Show on the tour. He was using a pair of Alnicos in a 212, and those speakers sounded really good to me. So, but anyways, Creambacks. I like the Creamback 75 the most. That's the one I was just talking about that goes in my original 212 for the PT100. Great sounding speaker, Creamback 75. Love it. What else? Creamback Neo. Kind of like a worn-in greenback, sounds like to me. That's a nice speaker, too. A little bit less efficient, though, than the 75s. But a cool speaker, and if you want a light speaker, those are good. The 65, cool, kind of mid-heavy to me. It's not my favorite speaker. Not a bad speaker, though. I don't think. I like Creamback 75. Yeah. The most out of all of them. Did my super chat evaporate? Not seeing it in the live chat. I don't know, Weasel. That's a good question. I think I've hit them all, the ones that have shown up so far. So I'm sorry if so, but you can just ask your question. Just say it's me, Wheeze, and I wanted to know. Good to see you looking well after that Classic Rock Show Tour 2023. I want to upgrade a budget telly style guitar I have and debating between Bone Nut or Graph Tech. A telly, you can kind of get away with a bone nut. I don't really think you need a graphite nut, although it doesn't hurt, but it's like a telly doesn't really, there's no trem probably, right? So, the main thing is that it's cut right, and if it's cut right and you use a little bit of that, Big Ben's nut sauce or whatever in there, you should be fine with bone. It'll sound really cool. Graph Tech's cool too, though. It's just I would worry more about a graphite nut if the string was really going back and forth across the nut, like using a tremolo. So just make sure the tech knows what they're doing. They cut it properly, and you'll be fine. What about a greenback and a Vox AC10? Would it be a 10-inch greenback? Because an AC10 is not a 12-inch speaker, right? It would sound cool, but I really like I would probably go with the Alnico Gold if it's a 10. Is a Vox AC10 a 10-inch speaker? I think it is, probably, right? I think, let me take a look. 110. Yeah, I would go with an Alnico Gold. It'll sound really nice. It's a little more money, but that's a great speaker, the 10-inch Alnico. And it'll sound a little more Vox, I think. Be a nice upgrade. Yeah. Anza says, super chat here from the UK. What's up, man? What's your favorite boost pedal for leads you've used in Duplexi? Well, for years now, I've been using something like a Klon, and I love that. So I guess that's my favorite. There's a number of different ways you can go depending on the type of boost you want, but I love the Archer is what I used for years, the Jeff Beck model, the Archer Jeff Beck mod one from J-Rocket. And lately I've been using a Unobtainium from Crazy Tube Circuits, and it's got a side that's like a Klon, and it sounds really, really basically similar and does that Klon thing great. So, yeah, Ben says, Wheeze, it's still there. Pete is far back in the chat. I should try and move down a little more. Yeah, I have any experience with Celestian hemp backs? No. My only experience, and I don't know that they're like this, but my experience with hemp speakers is they're generally kind of dark. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Has anybody out there tried some hemps? I haven't tried the new ones yet. Yeah. I see where I am. Yeah, I'm about 10, 15 minutes behind the chat. Blue Sky, talking about when I was saying Taylors are super consistent. How often do you pick up an acoustic? Not that often these days. I don't think I have all year, but I need to. I gotta record another record. I'll do at least one acoustic song on the record, so because I just should. So I should play more. FM9 or Quad Cortex, just depends on who you are and what you want. Let's see. Is the Ocean Way plugin worth the cost? It's really cool. It's a great, roomy, reverby, very, very cool. Uses a lot of CPU, so make sure you got a good computer. And yeah, it's pricey, but it is cool. It's really neat. It lends a. This is a plugin where basically they've gone and kind of modeled the rooms at Ocean Way Studios, and you can add like, you know, you can take your dry track and then sort of put it in Ocean Way and get a bit of that room mic ambience and stuff, and it has a really, really great sound and allows you to add some depth and spaciousness to your recordings if you're doing stuff at home and stuff that you wouldn't be able to otherwise, because you don't have a big room like that, because you don't live at Ocean Way, do you? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's see. Moving down through the chat, moving down. Let's see. Here's a fellow bought a couple F phones from Sweetwater. Les Paul Jr., Les Paul Modern, sight unseen, deal with Sweet. Everything was just fine. One thing I can say about Sweetwater is, you know, they have a very rigorous inspection program. I didn't even know this, but you can like have Sweetwater mod guitars. Like you can buy a Strat from them and have them route it for a humbucker and put a Floyd on it. Right from there, like you can order it. It's kind of interesting. You guys know that they'll do all that? Like they'll do these crazy mods, and you know, you can. It's kind of interesting. So they're a very unique company that has a unique, you know, way to mail order guitars, and the guitars go through I believe, pretty rigorous setup. It's smart because, you know, if a guitar arrived completely messed up or just not, you know, you're always gonna, you know, it's shipping from a rainy place to a super dry climate, it's gonna probably change the neck, but they do the best they can, I think, with setting them up and making it so that when you order a guitar from them and you pull it out of the box, it's playing pretty good, and you're like not going to be like, I want to send this back, you know, because obviously that would suck for them. It would make their business sort of difficult. Yeah. So, sorry. Our Motor City pickups made in Detroit. Yeah, Wade lives in Detroit. He's a very Detroit kind of guy. Are you running your Synergy modules through your PT100 power section to add channels? I've done that with a Synergy, the little one space guy. How does it sound? Do the different preamps take on too much power amp tone or sound too similar? Well, too much I wouldn't say is, you know, it's all relative. I mean, the power amp definitely makes a difference. Back there is the rack that I have one of their two 6L6, or I guess it's a dual 50-watt power amp, the Synergy power amp. See the rack right there? And I've got one of their two-space module Delio jobbies, right? So that's generally what I use, is their power amp. And does it sound different? Yeah, I mean, it changes when you run into different power amps, for sure. But you might like that change if you like the way, you know, a certain power amp sounds. So do they all sound the same or sound too similar? I mean, I think the biggest homogenizer is speakers, you know? I mean, the preamps being different, is it going to sound like a Vox when you run a, you know, Morgan module? Sort of. I mean, but if you run it into EL34s and Greenback 412 or something, does it really sound like a Vox? Well, it sounds different, but some of the character of the Vox is there. So, you know, it's up to you, you know. You know, there's all these factors. The preamp is one part of the equation, and it's a big part. It's where the tone really gets shaped, you know, to a great degree. The amount of gain and overdrive and the circuit and stuff really gets shaped. That's definitely true. But just sorry, one sec here. Never mind. Sorry. West LA Music used to be the best mail order place. West LA Music was really cool. They're not even around anymore, are they? Like, that was a good store. I used to buy a lot of stuff from West LA Music. I bought, I'm looking at my API here. I think that came from there. I think it did. My two channel, one rack space API preamp. I think I bought that from West LA Music. I think. I've got a UA 6176 here. That might have come from there years ago. I mean, West LA Music was a cool place, but Sweetwater really took it to another level with, they just did it in a different way. And they're located in Indiana, kind of in a sort of, I don't want to say the middle of nowhere, like that would be, but it's not, it's a smaller town in Indiana where they are really. And it's like they went there for, I think because they could set up shop there, have a lot of land, the tax benefits of being in a place like that. And they were trying to incentivize and invite people there to start businesses and stuff, obviously, on a state level. And then they're like, okay, we're out here in this place. There's obviously not going to be a lot of people that come to us for guitars. How are we going to make this appealing? They had to really have like top notch. Obviously, it worked. I mean, their plan was, it's gotta hand it to them. I would say I would have been like, that's not going to work, and they made it work. If you told me the idea and they. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying. T-Mit said, I love Jimmy Page's sound on The Song Remains the Same. I do, too. How did Jimmy get such balls and clarity in his tone? Speakers, KT88s? I mean, it's just a sound of a good Marshall getting pushed with... I was talking about this the other day with Jamie Kime, actually, and talking about the tones on that, on Song Remains the Same. Like, some of his live tones, that I really like. I'm not, although I love the records and I love the way they sound, I can't imagine it being any different. I'm not a guy that chases the tone on Led Zeppelin 1. Some people are like, that Led Zeppelin 1 sound with the telly, and then I'm like, it's cool. I don't particularly think it's like, I think it's great parts, great songs done with a lot of gusto and that sort of thing. But I'm not like, I have to have that guitar sound. I sort of prefer his live sound. And I love the sound on the West Was One, that whole DVD that came out that was mixed by Kevin Caveman Shirley, right? Wasn't it? Is that who mixed it? Kevin Shirley? That's who did it? And, came out, God, almost 20 years ago now, I think. But that was really cool. And then Song Remains the Same. I agree. And when the Song Remains the Same, when he plays the double neck, I really like the sound. Almost the most. Like that big old slab of mahogany. It just sounds, the tone on that is really great to me. So, but yeah, I guess just Plexis and KT88s and good Gibsons and, and his style. There was the sound, Yep. Here's another vote for the SSH in my single hum single guitar. That was the one that I came up with, that somebody said they wanted a pickup for hard rock, not metal, cutting, but without too much honk. When I think of honk, I think when you start getting up 14K, JB's got some honk, but if you go a little wide, like 11.8 or whatever is or 12.8 or whatever is the SSH, a little lower, A5, it's going to be like different resonant peak and stuff, and I don't know. I'd go for that. What will your rig consist of for the Five for Fighting tour? I haven't got that far yet, but I don't know. I'll probably decide in May what I'm going to do for that. I was sort of thinking, because I think it's not going to be a super long set. It'll probably be a 45-minute set, because we're opening. Not that should play into it, but do I just want to go like a mono rig with a simple amp and some pedals, Or do I want to, I don't know. I mean, I could use PT15 cabinet pedal board, be done with it, One amp. I'll probably take two, one for backup. Oh, now I can go stereo because I've got a... Oh, see? That's how my mind works. Now I'm off and running. But I might just do the Quad Cortex rig again. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. D. Marty says, I just smashed that like. Please smash that like. It helps spread this across the worldwide interwebs. Get it out there. T-Mitz is happy with his EL34s. No troubles and great sounding. They're a good tube. They do sound good, Nice EL34s. The EH ones. Paul says he wants US tubes. Well, I got good news for you. There's some coming. Apparently. Okay. Heading down a little lower in the chat. There's a super chat I got to get to. What do I know about the 75? Ooh, I never heard of this. Univox Micro Faster? Never heard of it. Don't know what that is. I don't know. Micro Phaser. Never tried it. Is it cool? Tell us about it. Mike Nielsen did a video saying he's ditching pedals for an affordable model or multi-effects. Seemed like April Fool's, but he actually made it seem like worth buying. Was it on April 1st? Then you know, it was April Fool's. Let's see here. Is the PT100 plane gain plexi channel different enough from an SL68 to justify a single channel, no FF loop version of it for the most pure version of it, similar to an SL68? I mean, then you kind of get into the... That's almost like the SH versions or SE versions of Sir hand-wired amps. You know, that's like a gain channel. It's probably not that far off from my amp, to be honest, with one of those. John could tell you, but... I don't really think so, you know. The thing about an SL68 with no loop, the PT, when you got a PT100 in the gain architecture with extra gain boost in it and stuff like that in the front end, you're developing most of the gain in the preamp. That's just sort of the nature of it. With a plexi, the gain is, I believe, a lot of it coming. I mean, some of it's coming from the first stage and the second, but a lot of it's coming from distorting the phase inverter. And that's where you get into, like, now the effects loop becomes a problem because your effects get distorted just like they would going into the front of an amp. So it just doesn't really work with the circuit. So it doesn't really detrimentally affect an amp like the PT100 at all, having a loop in it. It's not a, you know, switching the loop in and out doesn't really change the tone. So, and why do it if you, I mean, you can have the extra clean, the clean channel is brilliant, and I use it all the time. So I don't really think so, you know. I don't really think just having a gain channel version of it is that interesting for me, you know. I don't think. Yeah. Okay. Favorite producer or dream producer you'd love to do a session with? Man, producer. I mean, to be honest, the guy that I would love to probably sit down the most with and just talk with would be Don Landy. And he's an engineer, you know, but just about the whole Van Halen thing, just because I'm such a nerd, like to be, because he knows where all the bodies are buried, basically, you know. He's going to be the guy that was the, you know, with probably the best memory of what happened, you know. And I'd love to just pick his brain about stuff and be like, how did you, you know, what's your deal with mic placement? Who knows, you know, like exactly what he did. Or what's your deal with, you know, was there an 1176 in line? Because I always heard there was, you know, was there an, you know, what about preamps? What about, you know, that'd be really interesting, I think. Just because I'm such a Van Halen nut and with the tones and stuff. But other producers, you know, sometimes producers, it's funny, it's like, it's not what you think it's going to be, you know? You might have this preconceived, like, a expectation that it'll be this amazing experience, and then it's not. And then other ones you might learn a lot from and you wouldn't necessarily have guessed. I'd love to work with Brendan O'Brien on something, to be honest, because I've heard nothing but great things about him. And I've met him a little bit, and he would be, I think, a really interesting cat to do some stuff with. I've got a lot of admiration for Rick Rubin. Just his hands-off approach, or kind of like worrying about the right shit approach, is really interesting to me. Some people say he doesn't do very much, you know, and he's not an engineer kind of guy, and he's not a musician, you know, but what he is a facilitator of what seems to get people to make great stuff, like cutting out all the other stuff. He obviously is really good at assembling a team, or, you know, I'm sure he hires brilliant engineers that, and then, like, he really knows how to kind of get to the nitty gritty. Michael Beinhorn, I'd love to do something with. I've met him. He's been right here in this room. Interesting guy that I really enjoyed talking with. Obviously was a huge part of Super Unknown, which I think is the Sgt. Pepper of the 90s. You know, Sgt. Pepper's of the 90s. Just an amazing sounding record. I know Chris and him were at odds at time about things, but whatever happened with that record was brilliant, you know. So I find, you know, I think that'd be fun in some sort of rock context to work with him. He makes great sounding records, you know. So and I just liked chatting with him and stuff. He was I just liked him as a guy. So anyways, there's a few. Let's see. Love to try your new neck shape. How did you like it? Is weird switching between guitars? No, you know what? I got very comfortable switching between guitars as long as it's a good playing guitar. So by good playing, I mean relatively straight neck with great frets. You know, good fretwork. You know, the guitar's set up well. You know, it's not a bear to play. As long as it's that, I can play a lot of different kinds of guitars and feel pretty good about it. You know, so yeah. Did you see the riff Andy Timmons played on that pedal show that made Dan cry? I did not. I gotta watch for that. If anybody could do it, Andy could. He's brilliant. I have an SL68, all your PT revisions, but wonder what the PT Plexi gain circuit would be like in a hand-wired single-channel amp. So we were just talking about that. Yeah, I don't really think it would be any better in modern vintage, you know. I don't think you would notice that it's like, oh, it's better if it's, first of all, hand wired is these days, you know, my favorite amp builders, be it Sir or Friedman, they've all, you know, they're all on the tip of like, look, if it's a proper PC board, it's going to be better than, you know, there's more consistency, more reliability, you know, than the hand wired opens you up to. So I don't think you, and I if they say that, then I believe them because they're experts in amps. So, with the SH and SE, you know, you're so close, I think, probably in some of those to what the PT is anyway. It's just some values different. You know, you could probably have one modded to be very much like a PT 100 and have exactly what you're talking about. You know. They're all some variation of you know, a Marshall with a more gain, you know, a gain boost, and then just it's fine tweaking the components and stuff like that. We do use a different output transformer, I think, in the PT 100, but you know, there's also there's things we've already moved towards in the PT for a PT 50 design that, I mean, like, you know, tweaks we've made and things like that are already, you know, already make it a different amp. So, you know, we're moving towards that and stuff. And yeah, we'll get there soon with the PT50, I hope. Have you played Red Rocks? Yeah, I played. It's been a long time, but I played there 2006 with Jewel. It's the only time I played there, but it was cool. Amazing. D. Marty says he lives by the Paramount. Great place to see shows. Boy, I'm pretty far back in the chat, aren't I, guys? Wow, am I ever far back? So I'm going to move down because this was ages ago. I was talking about venues. Let's go down further here. See if I missed any. Yeah, I'm so far back. I'm so sorry about. I get long-winded, and then, you know. So I'll move down, just grab a few on the way here. Does any amp company make a great amp with clean and overdrive that is unique and doesn't sound like a Marshall, Fender, Mesa, or Vox? Soldano, I would say. You know, they've got a clean and OD channel that has its own Soldano sound, I think. Some of the European, like, you know, Engel, probably, you know, the Savage, to me, has its own sound. And, you know, in the Synergy line, you can experiment with this. I would say the Steve Vai module is very unique. It's got a wonderful clean that is like almost like hyper Fender sparkly. And then the distortion side is Steve's lead thing. And it's not a Marshall. It's got a smoother thing to it. That's got its own sound. So that's there's a few, you know. I think you'd love the F70. I have one. Oh wait, I got one more. That's the speaker from Fane that I really want to try. But yeah, I gotta try those, Big Boss. I want to give those a try. One more thing I thought of right now is this, the Hedgehog. So that's a Dumbly clean and drive. So very American sounding, but it doesn't sound like a boogie or anything. It's got its own, you know. And it's not technically two channels, but kind of, for all intents and purposes, you know, it adds a an overdrive circuit to the clean, and it sounds like 2 channels, sort of. So there would be one too. You know, so anything Dumble, you know, probably Bluto tone and those different, you know. Although that's a true, you know, you can switch that in and out, and it kind of sounds like a 2-channel thing, really. Checked out the cabs. Looks cool. Thanks to Sean. Do you ever have any problems with the sound only hitting your legs with horizontal cabs? I just tilt them back. I'm very old school about it. Take a hockey puck and put it in front of the... literally tilt the cab back a little bit. And that's how I do it, you know, if I'm too close to the cab. So, yeah. What's your favorite at Hardee's or Carl's Jr.? I've never eaten at a Hardee's. Carl's Jr., probably that $6 burger. But didn't Carl's Jr. do the green burrito? And they used to have the best fish tacos. This is going back a long time, but yeah. I can't eat a lot of fast food places that are burger places because I'm a gluten-free guy. So that none of them are like, I'm always getting I'll go to In-N-Out and get the animal style, you know, protein, you know, with no bun, but that's boring, you know. I mean, I like a good gluten-free bun, man. Not a lot of places do it. Fat Burger does. Answered this one already, but feedback on the Ocean Way Studios. It's a bit of a CPU hog, but it's a wonderful sounding plugin. That's what I think. How do you find out when your Celestion speaker was made? There's a code on them. I don't know, but you could do Celestion date code Google search, and you might find something. The codes mean something, but I don't know what. Have you, John or Dave, done a shootout with they're stamped on the frame. Have you, John or Dave, done a shootout with the same size cabs as speakers, but different woods like birch, pine, and mahogany? No. Why do most use birch? I don't know. That's what they used back in the day. You know, it's like, I think there's a lot to do with cabinets that affect the tone. A lot of it is the bracing and how stiffly. A lot of it is if there's batting on the inside. You know, like some of the modern cabs like Bogner and stuff. They'll be filled with all this batting stuff to absorb stuff on the inside. Batting and like a soft, you know, stuff all the way around. That affects the sound. I remember Gene at Ultrasound in New York. It's a great store that sold all kind of boutique amps, and he was talking about he got me this cab from Blockhead. Made by the folks that did Blockhead amps. And it's my cab. It's not the one that I mic in the other room. That's an actual Marshall cab. But I have a Repro 68 Blockhead cab that's loaded with old greenbacks as well. And that cab, he described it to me. He goes, yeah, I you know, the guy does it so that the bracing's tight but not too tight. Because they weren't that tight back in the day as part of it. Like you know, there was a beam going from the front to the back to, you know, to brace so the back doesn't rattle. But not too tight, you know, that kind of thing. You know, there's a lot of factors that affect cabs. And I just figure the best sounding ones to me are always the old, I mean, I've played some brilliant sounding old Marshall cabinets. Old Hiwatt cabinet with a port. Those sound killer too. The ones with the port. You know, there's a lot to do with design, but you know, I've never done a shootout with the different woods and stuff like that, but I will say the batting thing makes a big difference, and the cabs that aren't braced too tightly, it's like, yeah, that's interesting, you know. It's like they just have a liveness to them or something, you know. Like it's maybe not that, you know, you might get a little more rattle out of them, but I don't know, it's cool. You ever hear the back rattle when, you know, when somebody loses some of the screws for the Marshall? I can remember like playing with, I remember this band Earl Greyhound that was opening for us for a while. Is that when I was with Cornell? I think so. And they were opening for us, and I remember the guy had a full Marshall stack in the top cabinet. I remember like walking by the back of the stage as they were playing, and you could just hear the cabinet going. He's playing certain chords, you could hear the back on the cabinet sounding like it was going to blow right off the cab. Like it just wasn't all the way tight, and pretty crazy sounding. Anyways, it's all good. Do you think the speaker cab vibrating the amp is bad for the amp? Well, I mean, combos, I think it's sort of common knowledge amongst amp guys that combos with tubes down You know, in the speaker, they tend to, because of the just heat and also probably like vibration from the speaker, they tend to not last as long, tubes in those amps. So there's something to do with that. Any kind of vibrating tubes is probably bad, but I would argue the tube gets more vibration on the way out to the car, getting pushed by the, you know, the roadie or whatever. You know what I mean? Along the pavement, you know, in the road case or whatever. You know, that's probably not a great thing. So yeah, you know. Let's see, what's the best replacement speaker for a Champ? The Champ's an 8, right? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't have a good 8 replacement. 10s and 12s I know about, but yeah. What etiquette can hobbyists like myself take from professionals like you? You know, guys like me that make videos for the fart pedal. Professionals. I'm just kidding. To make jam sessions more creative and fruitful. Cheers from UK. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the super chat. More creative and fruitful. Well, everybody doing the, you know what? More homework. Like, go in with a clear-cut idea of what you're going to do that, and make sure everybody's learned their parts at home so that you're not like, that's one big thing. You know, everybody taking it seriously so that you basically come in, you're able to play songs down, and it's just a question of then tightening up the ending, or like, what was that part in the middle? Or what, you know, the bass player, like, what are you playing on the kick? What's the pattern in the, oh, okay, I got it. You know, and that should be all that, you know, really, like, I think a lot of people, I mean, I remember in my early days of playing in bands, you know, coming in and not really knowing the songs, and then, like, you sort of learn them in rehearsal, and you never really get through that many songs, because you're like, how's the bridge go? Oh, I don't know, I gotta listen to it again at home or something, and then you, okay, let's move on to another song, and you just sort of, like, do that. Don't do that, you know, like, try and do the homework at home kind of thing, and then, like, so that's number one. Probably the most important thing that I can think of, you know. Let's see. If you have guest musicians on your next record, who would you like to play with? Steve Stevens played on both my records. I would love it if he would do something on mine. And also Jason Freese plays keys. He's a keyboard player extraordinaire with Green Day. I would love to have him do some stuff. I really want I want to do something with my buddy Charlie Paxton, who's a great drummer. And he's got a studio that's very close to me here, so I'd love to do something with him. So yeah, we'll see who else. But those are the ones that came to mind. I mean, John Button's always a great collaborator on bass. And played on my records. Would you ever play in a country band? Please don't. If it was good, I'd love to play with, you know, do I say his name right? Jason Isbell. He's not really country. He's like Americana, I guess, you know. But God, his band is amazing, and he's great. I just like him as a guy. He's like really cool. It seems, I've never met him, but the persona that he projects anyway through stuff I've seen with him, it's like, I want to hang with that dude. You know, I mean, I'm not anti-country at all. I like country music. I like if it's good. I love Steve Earle. You know, I like real, like, great. I like old school country, man. I grew up, you know, listening to like George Jones and stuff, because that's what my dad was into, and Charlie Pride, and, you know, that kind of stuff. I know that's not really a thing now. Like, if it's modern sort of, you know, country that sounds like Def Leppard but with a guy drawing on top, I'm not really into that. But if it's you know, if it's just cool American music that somehow falls into the country, you know, even you know, Cornell played with different folks of that genre, you know, if they were great songwriters and there was a mutual respect there, it crosses lines, you know, right? So it's good music's good music to me. By good, you know what I mean. Okay. Todd says that he gets all his gear ordered, including guitars, from Long and McQuaid in Canada, which is kind of like the big, you know, the big chain of, it's, I don't know, I guess like Guitar Center, but you know, they're probably more successful than Guitar Center is these days. I hate to say that. I don't mean to diss Guitar Center, but you know what I mean. They've had their troubles and stuff. I think Long McQuaid's quite successful, right? They've got stores all over Canada and are highly regarded, you know. Yeah. So that's nice to know you've got a good experience with them. My friend Yvette Young just did a clinic for them in Toronto. I think she said they treated her really good. Do you use special capacitors for your guitars? No, nothing special. Just whatever comes in them. I would say. Teemit says, I used to work down the street from West LA Music back in the day. I'm almost positive we first met, Pete, way back when you worked on Sunset at that cool guitar shop across from Boogie. I did for a minute. That's right. At Vintage Gear, it was called. No longer there, but a great store. Kind of ahead of its time because it was like pre-White Stripes and stuff, but what they sold was a lot of Airline, Supro, offbeat guitars. If anything was modded, and because it was a collaboration. Part owner was Lloyd of Voltage Guitar, which is a, you know, the classic vintage guitar store that I think was even in Spinal Tap, right? And so if anything was weird or offbeat that Lloyd didn't probably feel like was right for Voltage, it went into Vintage Gear. And also that was where all the pedals went. So it had a ton of vintage, you know, MXR or, you know, Electro Harmonics or Univox or whatever, that kind of stuff all went over there to Vintage Gear. Keyboards, like old Moog stuff and, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff came through those doors. And I worked there for a minute. I did. And that was my last job, I think, actually, J-O-B, where I was going to a place and turning on the lights and opening the store. And, you know, that was my last job. I never worked another job after that. Yeah. This is pre-2000. And that's the truth. But yeah, we probably did meet there. Brent from Slash's band, Brent Fitz, also plays in Took, Slash and the Conspirators. He worked across the street at Lilo's. And yeah, it was still kind of the good old days. Like I remember Albert's was still there, like all the old stores, you know, where the Carvin store was next door, you know, Mesa Boogie was obviously there. And, yeah. Fun times on Sunset Boulevard for us aspiring musicians. How do guys like EVH and Marty Friedman palm mute while holding their pick the way they do? I don't know. You gotta twist your hand in some weird... Eddie had well, I always forget that he kind of held his pick with the thumb and the middle finger a lot, didn't he? Which is really bizarre. But, hey no! I have a Marshall 40V combo amp with clean and boost channels. What would be your choice of pedal or pedals for an 80s rock sound? What is that amp? Marshall 40V. Is it different than, I mean, it's probably got a pretty good 80s sound just out of the gain channel already, right? But if you want to add to that, I would get something like a Super Overdrive, the Waza Super Overdrive. Sounds great boosting, you know, for 80s in front of, that'd probably be my number one. Waza, the yellow one. The yellow Waza Overdrive is killer for that 80s rock thing. I did a video for it, and I'm boosting the SL68 with it, and it sounded really cool for that. Lops off the low end just right. It's got a sizzly sound and really cool. Yeah, 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 yeah. Let's see. Gear storage, says Jeff. Got a new amp delivered yesterday. Wife answered the door, and the last delivery said, "Here's another one." Gear storage, it's tough. You know, you got to have a space, unless you have a house with a great big garage or a basement, which a lot of people do, I guess. But we don't have that in LA, unless you make a lot of money. So yeah, generally speaking, you know, there's facilities that most of my friends have, like gear lockers. You know, they'll pay rental space on a, you know, a place that's 10 by 12 or maybe bigger. You know, my old locker used to be at a space where John Mayer had his gear too, and it was like mine was like, you know, you'd open the door and walk in 2 feet, and then it's like big shelves going up in either direction, and you could roll some, you know, road cases in there, and that was it. And like Mayer's was like you'd open the door, and it was like opening the door to, like, I mean, literally you could walk back 200 feet. You know, it was like a, and these are these, you know, places that specialize in cartage, you know, in other words, getting instruments all around the world or to a local session, or, you know, and you can call them up and say, hey, pull case number G20 and H35 and send them to Sunset Sound on Monday at noon. And they'll be like, okay. And then they'll go in there and get your gear, and then they'll truck it over and show up at a session or whatever. And so that's kind of how it works here. Generally speaking, that's how folks deal with it here. You know, everybody's got their lockers and full of gear and stuff. Yep. Unless you've got a great big facility of your own, some sort of house or garage or basement or something. It's the advantage of living where real estate isn't so expensive, I guess, and where there's, you know, more space and you get more for your money. But then you're not going to Sunset Sound, are you? Because you live in Minnesota or something, so you're doing other things. I don't know. That's just how it is. There's not. It's never perfect, seemingly. Do you ever use P90 pickups in any of your guitars? You know, I have so few, which is dumb. Like, I really want a great, I'd love a great Junior, I'd love a great SG Junior one of these days, and I'd love a great SG Special, but I don't have one. So, but one of these days. Yeah. Okay. You guys are talking about Gibson double necks, how they only have 20 frets. That is interesting. Yeah. Do you have a preference in neck finishes? I like, there's a finish on, you're saying roasted in oil is popular. I do like that. And I really like the Sur finish called Butcher Block. So that's on my signature guitar. It feels like oil, essentially. But, you know, like a Butcher Block that you would, you know, chop whatever on in your kitchen. That's essentially the feel. It's really nice. It's just got that raw wood feel to it, but it's protected, you know, because they don't like doing raw finishes at Sur, you know, or even just oil. They don't like. They like it a little more sealed. Look at that thing. I don't have one of the ones that the picture was posted of the other day, but this thing looks pretty good. Oops, I swiveled my microphone. Sorry. Tubes. What time is it right now? It's 2 p.m. Well, I'm gonna go another 10-15 minutes or something, then I'll split. Plexiclone has molded reissues. So far, so good. I think the seller testing them for faults is more important than brand. Yeah, probably. There are more duds than the old days. Yeah, it's definitely important, you know. The molded reissues are you know, made in the Electro-Harmonix, same whatever they call it, you know, that plant. Mike Matthews situation. So it's probably going to be similar as far as reliability goes, I would think, you know. But yeah, it's definitely important to get them tested and burned in and stuff like that, all that. And the more that you can, you still, you know, if you put them in and they work after a week, you're probably okay, you know. And then just leave them in there as long as you can, because it's yeah, if they work, don't change them. Always have a spare set and don't change them if they work. I saw a video from Vertex saying that the PT is very similar to the CAE head. Mason said the most versatile amp on the market today. That's very nice of him. I do think it's probably one of the most versatile amps on the market for sure. He's got I believe he did a video with the old version, the original version. And yeah, that's very close to the original custom audio. We started with a Classic Plus, if anybody knows the OD100 versions. The OD100 Classic Plus was the amp that mine sort of evolved from, which had a plexi-style output transformer, EL34s and stuff anyway. And then, you know, went from there. The newer version changed more than, you know, the version that we have now is more different from the old OD. It's moved away. But still not, like, worlds apart, you know, or anything. Let's see, you guys, like, this is discussions about producers that we were in a little while ago. Andy Wallace, somebody's saying Andy Wallace for sure. Bob Ezrin. Rumpy Pumpy says producers are overrated. Let's see. Rick ran High Compression on Californication. Californication's a really cool record because it's so pure. One of the neat things about the Chili Peppers is that you basically got those guys, that's it, and they tend to leave a lot of space in their music, and the parts all are good. So when you think about it's like simple parts generally, executed well, and you can leave the tones really big, because it's also, Frusciante's not a big distortion guy, right? So it's like, it's, good, clean, powerful sounds with solid parts played, executed well, and like no fuss, no muss. Like it's like cut out all the BS, and that's kind of Rick's records are very. That's the thing I kind of like about him is the purity of the. When you think about the Johnny Cash, collaboration, or they tend to be very raw sounding often, and just you get the song, and it's like I think that's what I like about it, pretty cool, yeah. Brian Eno, Bowie says he doesn't do much at all but ask interesting questions. Yeah, those oblique strategies or whatever, the cards that you read, and that's it. I think that's really neat, from an artistic perspective. Producers like that. Nile Rodgers. I mean, Nile's a legend, super cool, obviously, right? That worked out with David as well. Yeah. I think Super Unknown is the physical graffiti of the 90s. Could be, yeah. It's Jason Sutter, our drummer, said it best once. He said, it's the sound of a band arriving, like they've achieved their sound, And I believe that's true. I believe Super Unknown is where they had all the power in the world to do exactly what they wanted to do. They had the experience under their belt, and it was just a magic time in that band's history if the conversation I had with Michael Beinhorn was that, Chris felt somewhat frustrated that he felt somewhat boxed in, that he had to write a certain kind of song, and Michael went, what do you mean? You can do whatever you want. And he came back the next day with Black Hole Sun. He'd literally gone home that night and gone, you mean, and he goes, yeah, you want to write a song, like write what you want to write. Let's do that, and kind of just spurred, that literally Michael told me that standing right here, that was the conversation that he had with Chris, that he didn't have to. And I can, believe that was true, because I've talked to Chris about him feeling boxed in and not want, that people want him to do a certain thing, and he felt limited by that, and he'd like to do different things. And so maybe that could have been the very same conversation, I think, that he had with Michael, during the making of Super Unknown, where it was like, just do what you want to do, let's make that, and it sure sounds like that record, that they just stretched a little bit and did a very, I make the Sgt. Pepper's comparison because Sgt. Pepper's was the sound of a band just going for it, and you know what? Let's just do what we want to do, right? And I think when you hear songs like, I always come back to 4th of July because it's so. How do you make a song that's that sludgy and heavy? It was so beautiful, If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. I mean, how do you write a melody like that on top of a riff like that? It's incredible. It's like, it's really unlike anything else that I've ever heard in that sense, and that's where Chris was just taking the reins off, and, it's like, that is an amazing piece of music to me in the rock idiom. So I love that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Dave says his super thick PCBs can beat up Fenders any day. I think that's probably true. Yeah, good PCB is really reliable, They just have to be done right, And it's not all about making them super stiff either. I think it's all about they have to be able to flex a little bit, or else the traces can break and stuff. So it's about doing it right, like thick but not too rigid, and all that stuff. And Rambling Pete, am I rambling? Probably was. If I'm not, I probably will. I always ramble, don't I? Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. Oh, there's a super chat. Sorry, Doug, taking me a minute to get you there. Just bought your 2-note cabinet pack for Kepler X. I just got. Which cab is your fave? The G12M blackback cab. And yeah, that'd be the best one for classic VH tone chase as well. That's what you hear in most of my videos. It's that, basically that, you know. And it wasn't the Marshall cab in the other room that we used. I took my blockhead 68 style cab, but it has the same speakers, late 70s, like 78, 79, whatever, blackback Celestions. And that's kind of the Van Halen speaker, I think. So, I mean, who knows, you know, what speakers he used on every single, you know, but that's what was available anyways back then as a new Celestion, and he liked greenbacks, so that's the speaker of the day, right? And they just have that speaker's magic for rock, because it has a little bit more of an aggressive sound than an old Pulsonic, you know, like 60s greenbacks. They've got a little bit more hype in the top end. Yeah. Don't know if it's asked, but do you like Mesa Boogie amps? It's complicated. I've tried some that I really like. I mean, my first great tube amp was really a Caliber 50. Evidently not built well. I was talking to Friedman about that the other day. They're a little bit of a mess. But Caliber 50, wonderful amp. Tonally, I remember. It sounded really good. So I enjoyed that. After that, I had a studio preamp, which is, you know, cool. And a 295 power amp, but it was more than I needed at the time. I think it was a little overkill. I enjoyed that. I also had a dual rectifier that was the main amp I used on the 40-foot Echo record. That was cool for the time. It wasn't original. Everybody else was using one. That's why we used it, because that was the thing. Let's do what everybody's doing. So I had a Mark III that drove me insane. Literally, like, couldn't get a sound out of that thing. I could get a sound out of it, but then I'd go switch channels and it sounded like crap on the other channel, and then I'd spend the next 15 minutes tweaking that channel till it sounded okay, and then I'd go back to the other channel, and then I destroyed the sound on that channel. So that wasn't fun. So it's complicated. I remember trading that amp for a guitar. I was like, get this thing out of here. Can you tell your Gene Simmons car story? Well, I just almost ran into him one time. I mean, not at high speed. He was just walking around the back of what I think was a Lincoln Navigator, parked in the parking lot of SIR, rehearsal studio in Hollywood. And I was trying to pull my car in to unload gear. So I was getting very close to the Navigator, because I was like kind of in the zone right in front of the door of SIR. And he came walking kind of quickly around the back of the Navigator, and I was going forward right towards him. And I braked. And he looked at me with a kind of a death stare. I was like, what's up, Gene Simmons? But anyways, he walked in. I got out of the car, and I started unloading my gear. At which point, he was sitting down in the lobby of SIR talking over salad, or I think they were eating their lunch, like takeout lunch. And they were sitting in the lobby, and he was having like kind of like an argument with Peter Criss. But he wasn't really arguing. He seemed very reasonable. Peter was kind of upset. And Peter said, look, I just want to make money. I just want to make money. And he said, I want you to make money too. Well, as I'm pushing like my gear past, you know, and going into the, almost like nobody else was around, but there was people around. They were having this like kind of like this shouting match. So that's what I remember. Braxall says, have you ever been playing on stage and all of a sudden you could not remember how to play a song and screwed up? Sure. I mean, yeah, it's happened. It's pretty rare. Generally speaking, you forget for a minute, and then you're like back on track, you know. It's like, oh, like for 2 bars. I did it recently at a classic rock show. I forgot how to play the riff in YYZ, like towards the end of the song. Maybe it was at the beginning of the song, but it was that riff. And I just forgot how to play it. And I was like, so one pass went by and I was like, oh, and then I started playing it right. And I remember I'm kind of like at the point in my life where maybe it's just, you know, I don't care as much as I used to, but I did get on the mic and say like, I completely like lost my mind at the beginning of that. And like people were like, still sounded good, you know? And it was like, yeah, I just, you know, you ever had that happen where you're like, I always say when you look down at the neck and all of a sudden there's no music there, it just looks like wood and metal. You don't see any notes. It's just wood and metal. Ah, what is this thing? Yeah, I have that every now and then. Luckily, it's rare. Not a good feeling. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know this. Nembrini has Sims for iPhone, I guess. Amp Sims. Killer little live rig. Really? Can you imagine just doing a tour with an iPhone? The day'll come. Have you seen the Jam Pedals analog multi-effect pedal? I know, but I know they do stuff like that, and I like Jam Pedals. They do good stuff. That's probably cool. Which modeler does deliver the best Marshall tones, like Plexi and 800? I mean, they're all good these days, man. You can get a good Marshall sound out of an Axe FX, or a Kemper, or a Quad Cortex, or a Headrush, or a Helix. They're all right there. It's down to the way that you set them up, the impulse responses you use. You know, they're all good. Okay, let's see. Not enough hobbyists do the homework. Here, this is the question from the fella asking about like how to make rehearsals more productive. Not enough hobbyists do the homework, but it makes sense not having a lot of extra time at home. But the amount of time you do spend at home, even if it's 20 minutes, like getting down something so that you have a better understanding before you get in a rehearsal and waste 2 hours, you know, it's like time well spent. Because you just can't do the nitty-gritty work that you can do while you're home with headphones focused when you're in a room with a bunch of other people listening to a song over a PA or something, you know. How's the guitar go? It's like you can't get there. But when you're focused at home, even, like I say, 10, 15, 20, half an hour spent doing that, you'll get more done so that when you get in the room with the people, it's just macro, you know, like just tightening up everybody's parts together. But you can't do the minuscule bits, the getting into the, how's that riff exactly go? You can't really, I find anyway, I can't get that stuff when I'm in a room with a bunch of other people. That doesn't work. What's going on with my hair right here? I don't like it. I think it's time for a haircut. Gonna do something about this. What else we got here? What else have we got here? I think you should do a band with Matt Sorum. Matt played drums with the band that we rocked out with in the desert recently for the benefit that with Paul Rogers and Alice Cooper, folks like that. Yeah, this is a great idea, actually. Get Doug Pinnick to lay down bass. I would happily hire Doug to come in and play bass, and I know he does things like that. So that is a really good idea, actually. We could do a song with Doug or something. I wonder if he'd be into it. I think I could probably get him to do it. Like, if the song was cool, maybe he'd sing. How fun would that be? I'd love to do something with Doug and Charlie Paxton. That'd be really fun. You're making me think. You are making me think. This guy's kind of negative, so we're going to put him in a timeout. Somebody that's kind of creating a little negative vibe in the chat. We don't like that. Keep it positive. Damn it. Okay. A little bit of maintenance. What else we got here? You guys talking about gear and where to store it. Get rid of the furniture. That reminds me of, it might get loud when Jack White's talking about how he moved his bed out of his room so that he could have 2 drum kits, not just 1 drum kit. He had 1 drum kit in a bed, and then he got rid of the bed and got 2 drum kits and slept on the floor. I like that. Stiff Richard says, the last time I plugged into a factory new 50-watt plexi stack, it was the most trebly harsh, loudest, nastiest tone ever. F the new Marshalls. You know, that if you're talking about a little 50-watt, you know, the super lead sort of circuit, whatever, what the heck they call them? 1987X. It's got the harsh bright cap on it, the 4700 PF. But if you turn it up to 8, it sounds really good. So you just have to, you know, if you blend the channels, little jumper cable from channel 1 to channel 2, just turn up channel 1 to like 1 or 2, and then have the other one on 5. You'll probably have the sound you want. I just gotta just sort of, you know, massage it a little bit. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. Ben says, not that anybody gives a, but I gotta bail. Great to have you here, man. I care. I care that you're here and that you left. You're probably gone because it's 2:15 and you left this at 1 something p.m. So I'm 15 minutes behind in the chat. A couple super chats. Here's one from Peter. Always a better Sunday with Mr. Thorn. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here for the coffee fund. Arriving a little late. Videos this week. It's a good question. Couple amp videos. Karsten's 20 watt. And then another thing that I can't tell you about, but I think those will be the two this week, if not maybe more. But it'll be a fun, productive week for videos. And thank you, sir, for the coffee fund, because we are actually kind of out of beans. If I leave it up to the powers that be around here, other folks, the coffee will be extremely dark and harsh. A little rough. I'm a little bit more of a medium roast fan these days. So, yeah, gotta get in there with the beans, you know, make sure that things aren't too crazy. I don't mind medium dark. I just don't like it to taste like burned, you know, like charred. You know what I'm talking about. Have you ever had crazy run-ins with people who tried to use you and take advantage of you when you were coming up? Man, only one thing in particular comes to mind. I actually, you know, there's a number of where people... Yes. Okay. There's touring gigs where I had to fight for every little dime, even to get reimbursed for, like, if I got a excess bag charge once. You know, flying my... whatever gear to, this is pre-modeler days, you know, where it was like you had to have an amp and a little pedal board or whatever. I remember flying some gear to somebody's thing and then doing this festival, and then, like, I won't name who this was, what artist I was playing with, but flying home and then submitting the receipt that I got for $70 or whatever for the excess bag fee for whatever piece of gear I was taking to this person's gig. And you submit the receipt to management, and then you can't get an answer. And, like, after a month, you're like, hey, can I get that reimbursement for the... And they're like, oh, well, actually, I talked to the artist about it, and they say they don't approve it. And then me getting in touch with the artist and going, like, hey, like, what's this about you not approving my bag charge? You know, I had to get my pedal board or whatever it was to your gig. And they're like, just kind of giving me, you know, all this attitude about it. And I'm like, hey, like, this is for your good of your gig. Like, you know, like, I had to bring my stuff that, you know, I always use, you know. And they were like, okay, you win this time. I win this time? Like, that was the response I got? I win this time. Okay. I still remember it. You know, you brought it up, and this goes back a long time. And I was like, that doesn't sit well with me, you know. I'm just trying to make your gig sound good. You liked what I did when I came in and auditioned and got your gig, so that's what I do. And now you don't want to, you know, like, $70? Like, really? So that sucked. Another one, I did a session, so not far from where I am right now, here in LA, for some people. And I remember it was a time when I was particularly broke. And I really appreciated getting the work. I came in and played guitar on, like, 3 songs on somebody's stuff, and then they never paid me. And I couldn't get the money out. I couldn't get in touch with them. Couldn't get the money, you know. That sucked. I thought, nah, that's shitty. But those kinds of things happen, and they kind of form your you know, how you treat people down the road yourself, like how, you know, just, it's just, you know, you learn through that kind of stuff, I think. There's some teaching in those that you wouldn't get otherwise, you know, some lesson. Does your Sir Guitar's native with the Buzz Feiten system? Seems we do not see this anymore. He quit doing that. You'd have to ask him why, but I don't think he disliked it, but there was an extra layer of, like, you know, having to intonate using his offsets and stuff like that. Ooh, it's getting late. I gotta go soon. I gotta get on some other work, but there's super chats here I didn't hit yet, like Ben Tom, what's up? Fabric Top Guitars, Charles, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Hey, thanks, Ben Tom, for the super chat, but I wish there's something I could help you out with. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And also to BB Zonka, thank you for the super chat. You guys are too kind. Really appreciate you being here. I do. What do I miss from a single coil in the bridge that you get from a bridge humbucker and HSS guitars? Oh, just the heat. you know, the output of a humbucker, the tone of a humbucker, the rock, the mids. You know, that's all really, to be honest. Yeah. It says Ben's show is on at 8 tonight. Is that right, Ben? You're doing a show at 8 tonight, so everybody check out Ben Coombs. He's got it going on. Yeah. 8 p.m. tonight, says Melon Husk. Oh, any other super chats I gotta hit before I get out of here? I don't think so. I'm gonna go, you guys, and get some other work done. But this has been lovely as always. I've quite enjoyed it. Watch out for some more videos this week. Thanks for watching the fart pedal video. Share it far and wide. That sounded weird. I'll talk to you soon. Love y'all. Have a great week.